stroke, and cardiovascular examination was significant for visible apical impulse medial to the nipple in the fifth intercostal space. It was sustained heave, and at the apex.
What about the blood pressure? Because in this particular patient, for sake of severity, if it's outflow obstruction, I'm expecting a low pulse pressure. The objective evidence of that would be the blood pressure. Told me 110/90.
110/90.
Is it?
Yes.
That means a 30 pulse pressure, and this is an objective evidence. Otherwise, everything will be subjective. Your findings. But when you take a blood pressure, it gives you a reading of 110/90, 120/90. That means whatever the obstruction, it's severe. Now your pulse pressure is really low. So that's why it's important. So this low pulse pressure should be mentioned as a blood pressure. That is, blood pressure is 110/70. When you are asked to give positive finding, at least the basic hemodynamics should be given. His pulse is 80 per minute, blood pressure is so, he's not tachypneic, lying comfortably, and rest of the things are even in general physical examination. These basic positive in a way that they are all right, all the things. But blood pressure is positive finding, that he has a low pulse pressure. Okay, go ahead. Then jump on to the precordial examination. Showed that examiner will know that now you're going from general physical to precordial.
So in cardiovascular examination, the visible apical impulse medial to the.
I would start when I'm describing my precordial examination by symmetry. Chest is bilaterally symmetrical, or chest is slightly bulging on the left. That gives you an idea that your structural issue is really disturbing the chest anatomy. So is it symmetrical or asymmetrical?
Yes, it was symmetrical.
It's just tell that.
Yes, there is no deformity, there is no scar mark visible on the examination. So there was a visible apical impulse in the medial to the nipple in the fifth intercostal space, and there is apical heave sustained, and there was no left parasternal heave, or there is a palpable systolic thrill over the second right.
And what's the exact location of apex beat?
The apex beat is around 9 centimeters. It was not shifted medial to the nipple.
It's not exact shifted, location, both vertical and horizontal.
From mid-sternal line, 9 centimeters.
Yeah, it's 9 centimeters from the mid-sternal line, and is it in fifth intercostal. Always mention that. It's important. Exact location of apex beat. Okay. Even we see in examination, people are just mentioning apex beat is this, and without mentioning the location. So location is important, both, and seeing as well. You should be exactly counting, and it's measuring from the midline as well, where the apex beat exactly lying. Yes.
There was a palpable systolic thrill over the second right intercostal space. There is no palpable P2. And on auscultation, the S1 was merged with ejection systolic murmur. It was not clearly appreciable. S2 was clearly appreciable with maximum intensity over the second intercostal space.
So your conclusion with this examination finding is?
With ejection systolic murmur at the right second intercostal space radiating to
and
the
it's 4/6 at
yes,
least,
4/6
because there is a thrill as well.
Yes, radiating to the carotids. So there is all these findings are consistent with left outflow tract obstruction.
LV outflow obstruction likely to be aortic stenosis, because you are getting thrill at right second intercostal space. Now, how you define ejection systolic murmur? Let's give Dr. Fawad. And how is it different from pan-systolic murmur? Ejection systolic murmur and pan-systolic murmur.
So
you can keep it closer to you.
Ejection systolic.
If you have to explain to your junior that when you are assessing, this is ejection systolic and this is pan-systolic.
Yes.
And how you differentiate
so
between.
Ejection systolic is crescendo decrescendo.
Good.
Like it increases in intensity, right? Goes up and then decreases again. So that's crescendo decrescendo. And as far as the pan-systolic is concerned, that remains the same in intensity throughout. So that's I think the difference.
Why is it so? That you got this kind of feature in ejection systolic and a same intensity throughout the cardiac cycle or throughout the systole?
Yes, so This ejection systolic is because there is some fixed obstruction, and in pain systolic there is already opening or the blood can go through. So you have to pop
I can
it.
give you an example of a fixed obstruction in pansystolic, like VSD.
Yes,
It's a fixed
like
obstruction.
VSD.
But you will get across that a pansystolic.
So you don't
this
need to-
is it not really describing your difference? That fixed obstruction is always ejection systolic, and non-fixed obstruction or regurgitation or any other is there's something
Yes,
difference in relation to cardiac cycle which you have to describe when you're seeing. You usually got ejection systolic murmurs when you have murmur across semilunar valve. Why is it so? Because you have like systole starts with isovolemic contraction, isn't it? That's the phase where you have no flow across the valve, but systole is started. During that period, you will get the first heart sound which starts the systole. The bracket of systole starts with first heart sound and ends with second heart sound. This is the systole in cardiac cycle. Now, whenever you have a murmur or turbulence across semilunar valve, your initial part of systole will be slightly silent in a way that during the phase of isovolemic contraction, you're not going to have any murmur. And then you have progressively increased pressure across that fixed obstruction. Right now, this is the right, because you are trying to increase velocity of flow through a part where previously you have that much diameter, now there is this much diameter, and same flow has to go across that particular area. So to maintain same flow, you have to increase velocity, and that velocity increases as your force of contraction increases. That's why across semilunar valve you have this kind of murmur, because in that particular period, isovolemic relaxation, then you have rapid ejection, not same kind of ejection. It's a progressively increasing pressure. So that's why you have crescendo, decrescendo, then your diastolic pressure start to increase, then LV, and your valves close. So this flow across the valve automatically decreases during that period. So that's why you have that crescendo, decrescendo, and slight, you can say, silent phases just after S1 and just before S2, because flow start to reduce at the end of systole. So you have both these sounds bracketing that murmur with ejection. What are the other differentials of ejection systolic murmur? One is AS.
Yes.
Can you have these in other conditions as well? Because a number of times you will hear that murmur in normal persons as well, without any obstruction or anything. That is also very important to correlate things. When you got this murmur without symptom, without any clinical finding, what would be the possibilities?
Sir, these may be flow murmur due to anemia, pregnancy,
Why
hyperthyroid.
anemia causes murmur?
Sir, due to high velocity of blood, the cerebral
Actually,
axial.
velocity usually increases once you have almost 50% like hemoglobin. It's actually viscosity as well. Whenever you have anemia, lesser hemoglobin, your blood will be less viscous to create more turbulence. That's the main reason in mild anemia. Severe anemia, you may have increased cardiac output as well. That's one.
Sir,
Anemia, or that is sometimes called hemic murmurs. Hemic murmur that corrected after correcting hemoglobin. Then you can exactly say that this is hemic murmur. Any other?
Sir, pregnancy, hyperthyroidism,
Okay.
and AV fistula, sir.
AV fistulas, again large volume going across LV. Any other?
Sir, HCM.
HCM is obstruction. Yeah, sometimes very fast flow across that can give you, but usually in HCM you have slight transient obstruction because of the septum coming closer to the LV outflow tract due to that Venturi effect and all that. Any other?
Sir, other condition in which there is
This is all the why are you going to face with this? Aortic sclerosis. in old age patients. You have not a significant obstruction, but calcification and stiffness that give you a murmur across that. Pulmonary stenosis is obstruction, but we are discussing all hemodynamics which are causing increased flow across, and even in once you have a dilated artery after the valve, like in pulmonary artery dilatation as ASD, because that also creates turbulence. Once your blood is entering through a small orifice or even a normal orifice into the distal portion which is larger in diameter, that again give you turbulence. So even aortic aneurysms can give you murmur. This pulmonary artery dilatation can give you murmur. So whenever you are finding ejection murmurs, it's very important to identify are they organic or inorganics, in a way that you have to combine it with patient symptoms and other supplementary structural abnormalities, apex beat, parasternal heave, loud P2, these all things. Yes, go ahead.
So,
let's discuss today, I think, AS. We come to slightly the conclusion of management as well, and then we'll end.
Echo findings.
Yeah.
So on echo findings, there was.
But your clinical findings are suggesting that this is symptomatic, isn't it?
Severe aortic stenosis.
And moderate to severe. Your thrill means that gradient is roughly around more than 20 to 30.
But late peaking tarsal examination.
If even a late peaking, but remember that your clinical finding is always to include thing. Don't really try to make out exact thing through the clinical findings. So it just tell you above 30. How much above 30 you need exact investigations for that.
So on echo, there was a severe S with bicuspid aortic leaflet with mean gradient of 47 and aortic valve area of 0.7 centimeter with mild AR, and ejection fraction was 65%.
Okay, good. With these features, where you grade this patient in terms of the classification?
What is the EF like?
EF is 5%. Mean gradient
65.
47.
Yes, so it means that the patient is symptomatic with preserved EF, right?
So what is in the classification of, do you all know the classification?
Yeah.
Stage A?
Stage A is at risk only.
At risk. Like if in relation to aortic stenosis, we are discussing if someone has just bicuspid aortic valve, that will be stage A AS. Stage B?
Stage B would be